Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I've got the lovely Tanya Bowe with me today, who's a psychologist and a Circle of Security facilitator. Now, Circle of Security is a program I've always had a great deal of respect for, and it's very much aligned with a lot of the messaging we give parents in Transform Parenting. So I'm going to introduce you to Tanya and let her give you a bit of an introduction to her. And Tanya, I'd love to know why you chose this model.
Sure. Thanks, Tracy. Look, I have a firm belief this framework has the potential to kind of change the world in terms of how we relate to each other. What I particularly love about Circle of Security is that it's a relationship-based model, and any kind of relationship implies that it involves more than one person. So often with some child development and parenting programs, they can just focus in on the child and looking at their behaviour and maybe taking more of a behaviour modification approach. And what Circle of Security looks at is the relationship between a parent or a caregiver and the child. So it's not just about looking at the child's behaviour, it's looking at what the behaviour of the caregiver and the child as they interact, and how that can influence behaviour. So I really like that, and it's a bit of an analytical model because it involves a lot of trying to guess. So children are very simple, but sometimes their behaviour can be tricky or confusing for parents to kind of dissect and kind of go, what's my child needing from me? What's going on in this moment? And so Circle kind of gives you a bit of a roadmap that you can kind of move along and go, okay, is it this thing? What am I missing here? What are they trying to tell me? And yeah, I guess it kind of steers away from seeing the child and their behaviour as the problem to looking at what behavior is a form of communication.
Yeah, and what's under the behavior? What's the underpinning feeling and resistance or emotion that's going on for that child? Yeah, I think that's
exactly
really wise.
Yeah.
So have you used it yourself with your own children?
Every single day, Tracy.
Truly? Oh, wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, I love it, and I've been talking about Circle of Security for seven years now, and it amazes me that I still, on a daily basis, have that model in the back of my mind as I try and understand sometimes what's going on for my kids, and yeah, it's incredibly helpful in that way. And I came across it when I've got two children, when my youngest was around 1, and my eldest was sort of around 2.5 at that time, 3, and we're just having I was having a few challenges of trying to interpret some of the needs and things that were going on for her. And I went in with very low expectations, just one of the free kind of health programs that were run. And I was blown away. After 6 years studying psychology, many years of therapeutic practice, like it was a complete blind spot for me. And it made me wonder why we don't learn it in university as a core component of psychology. So yes, I use it every day.
Can you give us some examples, Tanya, either in your own experience or as a facilitator of other parents? What sort of changes people experience when they start to become aware of these principles?
We go into parenting, we don't realise, but humans are very simple in terms of what they need from people they're in a relationship with. But we go into relationships with our children and with partners, and anyone for that matter, with a whole lot of background information. So how we were parented, judgments about things that are good and bad, and what kids should and shouldn't do. And that background noise can overcomplicate what we see and how we translate or draw meaning from our child's behaviour. So I find once some of those really basic foundation principles are brought into conscious awareness, people enjoy. So they let go of the struggle as much and just start seeing it for what it is. So sometimes we interpret behaviour as threatening. Our brains automatically, trigger a threat response to some of our kids' behaviour, and that all comes from our background noise. So once we understand our background noise, we understand what triggers us in terms of our child's needs and behaviours. We understand a little bit about where that may have come from, and having a bit of a reflection on your own experiences of being parented helps with that too. Then we can just see the behaviour for what it is. It's a little person who is trying to communicate something that they need, and they have a very dysregulated brain up until a certain point in their maturity. So I find people start enjoying their kids more and start expecting less, and having a higher level of empathy, and also for yourself too, understanding yourself and why you struggle at times with your kids' behaviour, because we can't all be perfect. I still get irritated by my kids' behaviour, and I have to reflect and catch myself in the moment and remind myself of, where they're at developmentally, where I'm at in terms of my stress levels, and, working that through in my relationship. Does that answer that question? I feel like I gave you a pretty long-winded response to that.
No, I think it does. I think what you're describing there, and this is so fundamental, is it's very easy for us to project onto our children that they're the problem, but the connection between the parent and the child, and what a parent brings into a parenting experience or relationship with their child comes from our subconscious baggage. And as a therapist myself, working specifically with the subconscious, I'm always astounded at how what are the things that we carry forward that is still playing out in our life from our own childhood. And certainly as parents,
absolutely,
we get triggered. So we talk a lot about that in the village. Can you just describe some of the key principles for Circle of Security for those who don't know much about it?
Yes, I can. There's a lot of information out on the web with Circle, and you'll see kind of the basic model, which I remember looking at going, that makes no sense, but it totally makes sense at the same time when you haven't sort of done the background understanding on it. But the principles are, I guess, are very simple in that in every relationship, including those with what our child needs from us, we start with having a secure base. And, that's the caregiver. And from that secure base, feel comfortable to go out and explore the world. Now, as they're going out and exploring the world, we don't always realise, but our children still need things from us even when they're not with us. So that can look and sound like, hey, Mum, look at me, or look what I can do, or look at this, or can you play this with me, or, oh, I can't climb this thing, can you help me do it? And I think we easily as parents can kind of dismiss that if we're busy and they're, look at me, look what I've done, look at me hanging upside down, look at all these things. And you're like, yeah, 1 minute. But what we don't realise is they're kind of emotional cup filling moments for our kids. And every time we give that connection, that is a bid for connection. The, hey, look at me, can you do this with me? Can you help me with this? That fills their emotional cup. Those things can be really important in terms of building your child's resilience as they go out to explore. So top of the circle, there's top and the bottom of the circle. Top of the circle is usually associated with the more positive feelings and emotions, the ones that we're most comfortable with parents. Kids are usually happy and curious and playful, and we can kind of be the same in response to that. Now, the needs that children bid for at the bottom of the circle look a little bit different. So they usually require some sort of emotional regulation. So that's when they're coming back into you for some level of comfort. So they've gone off and explored, and now they're coming in and they need that that closeness or something from you. And I find that's where most parents probably struggle. Me, myself, I have struggles with both the top and the bottom, and it changes as kids go through different ages and stages. But you know, the dreaded tantrum, or the, you know, you've said no to something, and your child's, you know, very upset and disappointed because they couldn't get what they want, and you're the reason for that. So helping a child regulate their emotions when you're kind of the cause of it can be very difficult as well. But, you know, yeah, the going out and the coming in of children's behaviour is, you can notice it, especially with little kids. You kind of, you're sitting and you watch them kind of toddle off, and they might go and get a toy, but they always come back to you, and they'll either come back to you and give you the toy, or make a noise with the toy to you know, play with you with the toy, or they might even come and jump in your lap to kind of recharge and reconnect before they go back out again. And it's really interesting, tuned into it, because children do it, animals do it. Well, animals that like people, my guinea pigs probably don't do it, but my you know, dogs and things like that. Dogs have a great circle. I had a friend who did her thesis research on attachment and dogs, and so they often come out and go in and need reassurance from you and connection. And we also do the same thing with our partners. You know, we come home from work and we might have a hug, or we'll sit down and debrief our day. So that's a bottom of the circle, coming in, reconnecting, you know, organising, our partner organising, helping us organise our emotions, is I guess that fundamental circle of security. So yeah, it's one of those really tricky models to explain. I hope that gives you some kind of sense of what it's about. I could pull up a slide and talk more about it, but the general foundation of it is the going out to explore and coming back into a secure person with whatever emotions and feelings you have, and being welcomed as you come in.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. What sort of things have you noticed? What sort of changes have you noticed with people going through it?
Well, one of the things, so I guess it depends on the struggles that the parent is having in their relationship with their child. So sometimes it's, you know, getting cooperation, or it's, you know, being mean to a sibling, or it's getting up and down when they go to bed at night, or, you know, there's all sorts of struggles. But one of the ones I like to use as an example is something I noticed with my own child when she was about 4. I noticed that when she hurt herself, so if she fell over or fell off something, or whatever happened, that given the choice, she would always go to her dad. And, you know, I wanted to be there for all of it, right? I wanted to be her secure base and be able to regulate and comfort her through all her tricky times. And, you know, when my husband wasn't there, she'd kind of reluctantly come to me and take what she could get. But given the choice, she wouldn't come to me for that need. And I wanted to figure out why. So I took a step back, and I kind of used the circle of security model, and, you know, reflecting on that concept of secure base. So welcoming a child back into you, regardless of how ugly the behavior or the emotion looks, right? A child needs to know that they can come back to you once they've been out and whatever's happened. So I observed myself in a moment with my daughter, and what I realized was that when she would hurt herself, my face when she looked to come into me would have looked something like so I would be panicked by her being hurt. And yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that. You know, your child being injured or hurt in some way can be, you know, upsetting for you as a parent. And so my poor child not only hurts herself, but then sees my face of panic and thinks, oh, okay, this is not comforting. This is just making me even more panicked about my pain. So I'm going to Dad, who's, you know, all chill and just arms open wide and regulated in his own emotion. So that was a really interesting insight for me. And I think that's really the key. When we know what our blind spots are, we can have some choice or some choices about how we respond to them. So, you know, my daughter getting hurt is an absolute safe need. You know, kids get hurt all the time. It's not dangerous. But my brain and my conditioning, and God love my mum, I know she did the same thing and still does the same thing, you know, if I'm in pain or anything like that. So I know where it's come from. And, you know, I worked really hard on that, because I want my daughter at 4, it's a scraped knee or a hurt wrist or whatever. But as she goes through her life, that need for comfort is going to be peer pressure or social difficulties or a broken heart, and wanting her to be able to come to me for those things is really important. So I was able to step back, have a look at myself in relation to her, and work out what I was doing that may have affected her being able to come to me for that need. So yeah, that was kind of one of the struggles that I had that really helped.
That's great. So it sounds like circles related to young children, but I think it's more than that, though, isn't it? Like, how age specific does the program itself target?
So the principles of Circle of Security are cradle to grave. So every relationship across every part of your lifespan applies to Circle of Security. The COSP program, which is the 10-week group program that I'm a facilitator on, they're generally advertised between 0 and 8, and that's in the public system when they run the programs. So Mary Mead run the program for free, ACT Child and Family Health run the program for free, but they limit it to 0 to 8, just to have kind of a similar age range and experience for parents. However, myself and Christine, we run the program privately, and we've had parents of 18, 20-year-olds. We've had couples who are pregnant and expecting their first child attend the program. So we don't have the same limitations around it. And, you know, it's making those connections and translating some of the behaviour that you might see in some of the clips that are, you know, younger children, and translating that behaviour and what it might look like in the teenage years. Younger children demonstrate the circle really well, because they don't do as much of the verbal communication. A lot of their communication is behavioural, so it's really easy to see the circle and their cues and their needs. So yeah, but we do that translation as part of it, so the principles apply across the whole lifespan.
Has it helped you in your relationship with your partner?
Absolutely. I think my poor partner, subject to all of my training, he's a pseudopsychologist himself, but yeah, absolutely, it really helps. You know, in terms of seeing, you know, when how do I even explain it? Like, when you make a mistake, right? People make mistakes, and children make mistakes, adults make mistakes, and that's a bottom of the circle moment, right? So, you know, say for example, my husband does something, I don't know, something really boring, like doesn't pay a bill on time, right? He goes, oh no, or I've got a parking ticket. And I think a lot of our conditioning is to be quite blaming and oh, I can't believe you did that. Why did you leave your car like that? And what, you know, how could you have done that? Instead, it's about, what does my partner need from me? Do they need me to blame them for getting a parking ticket? just like my daughter, does she need me to blame her for hurting herself, or does she need my comfort and my, you know, my helping her regulate? So it's the same kind of principle. Oh, that's a real bummer, but you know, people make mistakes sometimes. You know, what can you do? That, you know, so it kind of helps in understanding each other a little bit better and how you respond to each other in conflict. Yeah, well, one of the funny kind of examples around being in relationships, adults often do a miscue. So children do this as well. This is a concept of circle in the later weeks of the program. But there's something called a miscue. So it's when you don't directly express a need, and adults do this all the time. So, you know, your partner comes home late, you know, and didn't tell you, and you give them an icy welcome. Usually you might give them a hug or a kiss, but, you know, they come in and they don't get this welcome as usual. And they say, is everything okay? And you say, fine, I'm fine. So I think,
yeah, right.
and that is hiding, that is hiding, you know, your emotional response. So what you're really saying is, I'm actually quite upset that you came home late and you didn't tell me, but I'm going to withdraw from you and miscue you and pretend like I don't care. And so the partner then goes, oh, okay, you're fine, there's nothing wrong. And then it kind of builds up from there. So I quite like, and I think in the program, having those examples in relation to your partner and how adults often hide a need, yeah, it just kind of helps solidify that learning.
So can you just tell us about the length and the makeup of the program, how it works?
Yep. So it's I think I said it's a 10-week program. It's not a 10-week program. It's an 8-week program. So it goes over 8 weeks, and it's kind of it's designed to build on your knowledge week by week. So you need to do every week, and you learn kind of something one week, and then the next week you go a little bit deeper into that. And doing it over time just helps with that journey of learning, because you know, for a lot of people or a lot of parents, you're learning a new way to relate to your child, or to see your child, and change takes time. And it gives you an opportunity to go away and have a practice with some of the new concepts and come back and reflect on those things. So yeah, so it's kind of unique in that sense. You don't kind of go to a weekend program and get all the information. You can keep coming back and, you know, reflect on how you went and what you want to try next time, and then keep building up on those skills. So we generally say that it runs for 2 hours per weekly session. Sometimes it goes longer than that. You know, generally there's 10 people in the group, and we're always kind of hanging around and helping people connect the model to their own unique situation with their children and family, but also trying not to tell them everything that's coming up in the subsequent weeks, and keeping people focused on the week by week journey.
Sounds really good, Tanya. That's wonderful. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they find you?
So to get in touch with me, I've got a Facebook page, so Nurturing Women's Psychology. Also, you can contact me through Corinna Chambers, psychologist in Woden. That's anything to do with Circle of Security. We've got a lovely receptionist there who handles all the bookings and intakes and interest for that. So yeah.
Fantastic. Is there anything else you want to finish with?
I could probably talk for hours on it, but I think I've covered the main things. Do you have any other questions or things? It's kind of one of those programs which is tricky to describe because it is a slow moving process. So I can't give too much away, but just to give enough for you to get a sense of what it's about. So I hope I've managed to do that.
So thank you, Tanya, for sharing your great wisdom today and letting people know about Circle of Security.